Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another Thyalwaysseek Q&A live stream. Today we are going to be discussing the fraud of Saint Patrick. And boy, do we have a lot of information that shows the Catholic Church for who they really are. Nothing but a bunch of lying shit stains on humanity. So I'm really going to enjoy revealing these pieces of shit for who they really are. Good morning, Judith. Good to see you. Now, a few things before we begin. To start with, I'm going to change the way the streams are done a little bit. Nothing too big. I'm just not going to do the news and updates at the beginning of these streams. I just feel that it's hard to keep it at half an hour, and then it makes the entire stream kind of run over, and I find that I'm rushing through all of the information that I actually wanted to do the stream about. So I've decided that I'm going to do a separate news and updates stream. Now, I'm not sure on what day that is going to be. I think it may be a Friday or Saturday morning my time, which means that it will be a evening time for you guys over in the US. So I'm thinking maybe a Saturday morning. The problem is that Friday and Saturday mornings I like to do my research for the live streams that I do about the esoteric knowledge, because quite a lot goes into trying to gather up all of that information. Whereas the news and updates, it's really just me giving my observations on what is going on. So I'm thinking that those live streams probably won't go for more than an hour. I'll try to keep them around an hour, and probably on a Saturday morning. So that way Friday mornings I can save to doing all of my research into what I want to bring you on these live streams about the esoteric knowledge. And then the news and updates can be on the Saturday morning my time. And and they'll be about an hour long, and I suppose that'll give me still a bit of time over the next couple of days to get together any additional information if I need to. And the other students of the teachings also help me in gathering the information, and they are the moderators of these streams. They also will let you know about we don't have a lot of rules for these streams, guys, and so I don't actually have a list of rules, okay? Because really, I don't think people need to be given rules for these live streams. It's pretty basic, just don't chatter with meaningless drivel in the chats and create white noise. Don't let us know what you believe. Basically, it goes like, I have seen this in a text and I don't understand it. Can you clarify this for me? Those are the kinds of questions that we want. I don't want people just telling me that you've heard this from some other live stream, you've heard this from some other researcher on YouTube, because as I've said, and I'll repeat myself, unless they're researching or giving information exactly aligned to what I am providing, I am not interested, because they still haven't got it, okay? I mean, until they understand there's a great year, until they understand there's a divine race, and until they understand the Jesuit shit stains have infiltrated every single section of our society, then really it's just no use giving me, their channel or their research, because you need to give them my research, okay? And then if they don't agree with that, I'm happy to do a debate with them, even a live stream debate. I am more than happy to do that. But don't tell me about these channels that just give opinion, because that's pretty much what the majority of researchers do. And it's pretty disheartening, really, because as a researcher, You love to actually interact with other intellects and researchers. And when I say intellects, I'm not talking about university trained, educated intellects, because they're not intellects, okay? They're just parrots. I'm talking about people who can engage in critical thinking and can actually look through information and know how to, understand, to join the fragments of pieces together to get a clearer picture. And there's very few of them. Very few. In fact, I don't really know any. I'm sorry, I really don't. It is such a hermit's path that I am on, because other than the few people who follow the research that I do and my studies and basically use it to, continue on their own studies, there really isn't anybody else talking about this information, guys. And so you'll find a lot of the alternative channels out there are actually controlled opposition, especially those channels who are large. Okay, those channels who have very large followings and who tell you everything you want to hear. Especially a lot of the New Age channels. They always talk about everything being positive. You just have to be positive all the time. You just have to meditate on lifting your vibration, on raising your vibration. Anybody ever says that to you? Anybody ever tells you that you need to, meditate on raising your vibration? You immediately need to unsubscribe from that channel, because that person is either an idiot or they're a controlled opposition shill trying to send you down a false path, because there's no such thing as meditating to raise your vibration, and there's no such thing as everything's going to be okay simply because you believe it's going to be okay. See, the thing about us first worlders, okay, and that's all Western countries, the US, the UK, parts of Europe, most parts of Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Western countries, people who live in, Western countries, we have the luxury of deluding ourselves. Okay, so we have the luxury of believing in this New Age bullshit because we live relatively luxurious, indulgent lifestyles where we don't have to worry about the threat of a bomb taking out our house and killing our children in front of us. We don't have to worry about food shortages. Well, for now we don't. I mean, this is going to change for us, guys, because we are going to be taught a lesson. And so this is why I know that people who indulge in New Age beliefs and live up in their head with these unicorns and sparkles and fairy dust are going to suffer the most, okay? Because they're literally deluding themselves that, they can live in this alternative reality, and they just have to believe that everything is going to be, okay, and visualize this utopian future for themselves, and this is what's going to actually happen, because they literally believe the brainwashing that has been relayed to them from these New Age gurus, these alternative channels. And they're always these feel-good, channels that just allow them and encourage them to indulge in these, fantastical illusions and delusions about, how they can raise their vibration and everything is, namaste, peace, love, and mung beans, literally. And as I said, it's only because we live in a relatively stable society, because that's just the way the Antichrists are playing out the script at the moment. And they are encouraging us to indulge ourselves in all of our vices, that these first worlders can, have this luxury of believing in this bullshit, of, you just have to, raise your, energy. You just have to meditate on raising your energy. And if you have bad things happening in your life, that is because you are attracting them to you. You are doing something in your life negatively that is attracting this negative vibration to you. And it's just a load of bullshit, because, imagine applying that crap to a child that lives in Syria. Are they attracting the bomb that blew their legs off? You know, this is just where it really does my head in with these types of people, because they literally are evil because they're selfish, all right? And this is what the New Age community encourages, this worship of self, that they are their own gods, okay? And it's just very selfish and indulgent. And even I see these modern Buddhists who just indulge in this meditation and, practically every day that's all they do. That is just a form of avoiding reality and avoiding your experience in this life, and it won't be rewarded, okay? Because you are here to experience life in full, and that is the negative as well as the positive. And this is the Hermetic principle of polarity, okay, at play here. We need both experiences in our life to be a full, human. And believing a man called Jesus is God is New Age. Well, Jesus isn't God, okay? And I don't know if that's New Age or modern Christianity, because modern Christians are pretty much just the same as New Agers. They really are. I lump them in the same group. They are all deluded, okay? Modern Christians have handed their minds and souls over to their clergy. They literally see their clergy as gods. They don't engage in their own critical thinking. They don't use their own God-gifted intellect. And this is why they think that Jesus is God, because Jesus isn't God. Jesus is the Son of God. See the difference? Jesus, the man, mediator between mankind and God the Father. That's what they keep ignoring, because they have been brainwashed by their church, by the Christian church, by the Catholic Church, because literally all Christians are a part of the Catholic sect. I know that they protest that and would be horrified for me to say that, but that is true, because they take their interpretation of the Bible through Catholic canon. And I'm not talking a few little differences here and there. The core beliefs of every single Christian are the same core beliefs of every single Catholic, okay? Because it's the Catholics who decided on the Bible. And as I've said before, I don't care that the Protestants removed 7 books. That Bible was put together by the Catholic Church. And if you think that the Catholic Church have had control of those scriptures for at least 800 years that we know of and haven't made any edits to those scriptures, then I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn, okay? Because you are really naive and borderline willfully ignorant. So I feel sorry for all of those. No, I actually don't feel sorry for all of those modern Christians. I feel sorry for their children that they're dragging into hell with them. But modern Christians, like New Agers, are literally walking down the wide path to destruction. Straight is the gate and narrow is the way. Number 11. Remember that from last week, guys? Keep in your lane, okay? And that's not what we're getting from the New Agers or we're getting from modern Christians. They're literally just believing whatever sounds good to them, okay? Their itching ears are following teachers who tell them what they want to believe, because they're weak-minded and they really don't have a backbone, because it takes courage to go and seek out knowledge. It takes courage to go and seek out truth. And it takes even more courage to actually go and apply that knowledge and that truth to your own life. So now that I've begun with that, I think it's time that we start looking at what this stream is all about today. And that's about the fraud played on mankind with St. Patrick, and how pitiful it is to watch people, especially Irish people, celebrating St. Patrick's Day, and celebrating it for the most part by getting absolutely shit-faced, because that's really a very spiritual and holy thing to do. Drink green beer until you're shit-faced, and that's pretty much what Irish people do, and everybody else that is just caught up in this absolute fraud being played out on humanity by the Catholic Church, and it's literally an attack against the divine race. So anyone that wants more information into the divine race, you can go and look at my other videos. I have a full channel of around 800 videos, all of them in regards to my research over the last 10 years. So anybody that's just finding this stream, please don't make your assessment on the knowledge that I possess based on this stream and think that I'm just giving you an opinion. I'm literally revealing information that I have studied and researched over the last decade. And so if you want to see more of that information and you want to see more detailed research, then I would suggest that you go and look at all of those other videos. I did have somebody actually comment on one of my first live streams, which I did about the mental universe, and they said, oh, I like the information, but it's all over the place. That's a live stream, guys. I'm not going to be, dedicated to dotting my I's and crossing my T's on a live stream. Okay, I'm going to tangent off. I'm going to talk about other subjects, and it's not going to be always about the subject that I have in the title of the live stream. That is just what the live stream is based around. If you want more curated information, more detailed information without the rants, without all of the tangents, then I suggest you go and look at my playlists on my channel and look at my research in full. And then I welcome any further questions. As I was saying before, I don't want to hear about beliefs. I don't want to see people get triggered because I am deriding the New Age or modern Christians and you don't like it and it's triggering you because you're actually a New Ager or you're a modern Christian and you can't handle the truth. And so instead of actually looking into what I am saying and going and bringing me some information to defend yourself, you'll just either abuse, attack, or just basically, be negative towards me because, that's how people react when they can't handle the truth, and I'm used to it. Look, hey, water off a duck's back, mate. After 10 years of hate, 10 years of being stalked, of having videos made about me. Okay, I don't care. I really don't care, because people who attack me because they can't handle the truths that I'm sharing have the significance, in my experience, of an ant. All right, literally no impact on me at all. Okay, it doesn't change the truth. It doesn't change the fact of all this information that I have studied over the last 10 years, revealing what the Antichrists have stolen from humanity. And if you're brainwashed into the beliefs that they have given you, and that's made you comfortable in your little reality that they've created for you, then good for you. Go and find another channel that helps to prop up your beliefs, because I'm not going to do that here. This channel, this live stream is for people that want the truth, okay? The ugly, horrible truth, warts and all. But you know what? Even though the truth is pretty shit in regards to the Antichrist and what they've done to us, okay, and how they have managed to brainwash so much of our society and humanity in general, how they've stolen all of our knowledge, how they've twisted all of the truths, how they've created all of the misery on our planet right now, and how they're going to create more misery for us that is going to result in World War III and thermonuclear war. Okay, that's pretty horrific to have to process. I get that, and especially if you're finding my stream for the first time. The first reaction, the first instinct for you to do is to lash out at me and say, that's not true, you're just a doomer, you're just a fearmonger, and I'm not going to listen to you anymore, you're a horrible person. But the fact is, it's truth. I hate to have to tell you that, but it is the truth. But regardless of all of that, when you find that beneath the materialism and beneath the material physical reality that they've created for us right now, there's actually something really awesome. And that is that you have a divine fragment within you. You are a part of the universal plan, and Once you understand who you are as that spiritual part of you, that soul that you are first and foremost, that opens your eyes to a whole new understanding of yourself and reality. And so the more you understand that about yourself, the more you understand that you are a part of the universal design and that you do contain a divine fragment within you, the less you have a fear of death and the less you allow them to control you through fear. Because that's what they do. When we only see ourselves as material, and even Christians do, and New Agers, okay, because modern Christians don't believe in reincarnation, okay, so they've been forced to believe that when they die, that's it. They either go to heaven or hell, right? And if they've gone to church every Sunday and listened to their clergy, well, they're going to go to heaven and they're going to live there forever and ever. And that's just not the truth, okay? Even Jesus himself speaks of reincarnation in the Gospel of Thomas. Reincarnation is a fact of life, is a fact of our soul, and we are reincarnated over and over again in a space, over a space of 26,000 years, which is called the Great Year. It's the year of the soul. We have the year of the body, which is the yearly cycle, the solar return, but we also have the cycle of the soul, which is a 26,000 year cycle. So when you understand these things to a deeper level, a very, very deep level, which is what you've got to do, okay, you can't just listen to me, you've got to actually go research and into the actual texts, not anybody else telling you what to believe, not the clergy, not an alternative researcher, not a New Age guru, not some channeler, not a theosophist, not anybody, not a Freemason, none of them, okay? You have to go back to the texts. You have to go back to the purest form of knowledge before it was bastardized by anybody else, okay, and given to you through the lens of somebody else. All I can do, or anybody else can do for you that is speaking about this knowledge, and I'm not talking New Age gurus who are frauds, but anybody that is speaking about real knowledge, all they can do is open the door for you. Okay, the rest is up to you. You must go and seek out knowledge for yourself. And as I've said, what is your soul worth? Is it worth you going and doing the work to find out who you really are? Or are you so caught up in this materialistic illusion that you just can't be bothered because, well, there's a really good footy game on, or there's a really good movie you'd rather watch than study, or there's something else in this materialistic realm that is distracting you from the most important thing to your soul. So that's what people need to figure out. This is about you. This is about your motivation for finding truth. And the universe knows that. Okay, the universal mind, the mind of the all, God the Father, the prime creator, whatever you want to call it, that knows you. Mind, body, and soul. You are known, and you will be weighed and measured when that time comes. So are you going to be found wanting? Because if you are just following distractions, if you are just listening to this information because it's interesting and it's a novelty, then you are going to be found wanting. And that's okay if that's the choice you made. But if you made that choice in ignorance, then that's really going to suck for you when that time comes. All right, I can see our moderators have joined us. We've got Anna and Lisa Marie. Hello, guys. And Anna and Lisa Marie are fellow students of the teachings, and they will help out with any questions that I miss as well as adding anything into this live stream about the truth, the real truth about St. Patrick. So let's dive in and see what we've discovered about this fraud that the Catholic Church has perpetrated on humanity, and especially the Irish. So to start with, let's look at some of the symbols around St. Patrick. So for the start, it's celebrated on March the 17th. And when we understand numerology, we know that we reduce numbers down to a single digit. And then that single digit holds information. Now, not all numbers are reduced down to a single, digit to give us the information. There's plenty of numbers in of themselves before they are reduced that still hold information for us, because as we know, the universal mind the mind of the all, the language of the mind of the all is mathematics. The backbone of the universal design is mathematics. That's why we see sacred geometry in everything, right down to the very way our DNA strands are built. Okay, everything, even the way a cell separates, is mathematical. We can actually see sacred geometry in the formation of some plants. We see it in pine cones, we see it in sunflower seeds, we see it in the way that our body is in different ratios. So our hand to our forearm to our arm, our foot to our leg. Most people who are interested in this knowledge already pretty much know the basics of sacred geometry, and this is how we know that the universe is not random, and we know that the experts who were trained in universities, and let's not forget that the universities were established by the Catholic Church. Okay, if you go and do your research into the most prestigious universities, go and look who established those universities. So the Catholic Church have cornered everything, okay, literally cornered the market when it comes to knowledge. They own all of the establishments when it comes to the education institutes. Well, and even if they don't own them outright now, they had a hand in establishing them, and they are the hidden hand behind these institutes. Science is all reliant upon these institutes. Everything is peer reviewed. Then we have the media. Again, this is all basically controlled by the Jesuits. Go and have a look at Murdoch. Go and have a look at all of these people who are the owners of these major, news outlets. And we know now that they have basically taken the hundreds and hundreds of different media outlets that we used to have and reduced them to about 5 or 6 different media outlets that own them all now. So they've cornered the market on our knowledge, on our information. And the same with religion. Every single religion has been infiltrated. I don't care if you're a Hindu. I don't care if you're a Muslim. I don't care if you're a Christian. I don't care if you're into Judaism. I don't care if you're a Sikh. I don't care if you're a whatever I've left out, okay, because there's many, many more. But your top level clergy have been infiltrated. Now, the lower level clergy probably don't really know any different to the narrative that they are forced to tell their congregation every Sunday. If you're a modern Christian, your clergyman is just relaying to you the narrative that he is allowed to relay to you, and he's not allowed to move from that narrative. He's not allowed to interpret those texts in the way that he thinks that they should be interpreted, or even if he does start making actual connections that are not in alignment with the Catholic Church canon, he cannot move from the narrative he is told and instructed to give you. So there is no truth to be found in any clergy. There is no truth to be found in any college or university. There is no truth to be found in any media. The only truth to be found are in the ancient texts that haven't been destroyed by the Catholic Church, because they had a good go at it, about 600 years ago, about, 1500s, 1500s, 1600s. Anna can probably, clarify this a little bit more if I do get my datings wrong, but they literally set out on a crusade to destroy the knowledge of every other culture and basically steal everything that they needed for themselves. And it's all locked up under the Vatican at the moment in their library. So they have all the knowledge of mankind. They know about the divine race. Okay, that's what all of this behavior towards the divine portion within humanity is about, in regards to confusing people with their genders. In regards to confusing people about their sexuality, you will find that the Pope is very ambiguous about that. He talks out of both sides of his mouth, okay? And that is because they are encouraging these behaviors within humanity, because they are dragging humanity down the wide path to destruction with them. And so You will not find truth in this world anywhere other than the most ancient texts, and there are still a few available. I do have links to the sources of knowledge where I have gained a lot of my studies and information from. You'll find them in the MeWe group, Keepers of the Flame, and you'll also find them on my website. I do have a resources page on my website, and so that is a good place to start. I don't have every single ancient text. If anyone has additional texts that they feel that should be included in the library, please let me know, because they are very, very important to our journey, because that is really where we need to go to seek out knowledge and truth. And that is why the Catholic Church has tried to destroy all of this knowledge, and why they have created frauds like St. Patrick to send people off the path. And as I've said, look at how people indulge themselves on St. Patrick's Day. They don't even question St. Patrick ridded Island of snakes. But hang on a minute, Ireland's never had snakes. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, don't worry, just give me another 3 beers so I can get shit-faced. You know, that's literally what people do now in these times, because mainly people are just slaves. We go to work from Monday to Friday and we slave away in a job that we hate. We pretty much just slave away to pay our bills and to pay our mortgage and to pay our rent and to live in the system that the Antichrists Catholics have created for us. And so the weekends are really where people just want to, you know, forget their miserable existence. And they do that by indulging in alcohol and drugs and whatever it is that they can do to take their minds off their miserable existence. And this is what prevents them from seeking further, because they're trapped in this system, and this is exactly what the Antichrists wanted to do. So if we go back to, it's celebrated on March 17th. So if we look at the number 17 in itself before we reduce it down to 8, that is equating to the Star Tarot card. And tarot cards are symbolism, okay? So they're not used for telling the future. They're not a fortune-telling implement. That was just a way that they were used to cover the truth of what they really were, because the people that had possession of this knowledge back in the day, they knew that there would be a time that we would start becoming more conscious, because we are moving down the cycle, and now we're moving back into a time of being more conscious. And that is why we're experiencing an awakening, and we're doing it in surges. So there was a surge of awakening back in 2011, and that's when a lot of people started really searching out information and knowledge, and especially about spirituality. You know, a lot of people got really interested in spirituality around 2011, 2012. And of course, the Antichrists put a little snare in there for us to fall into a trap, and they created this big psyop around 2012 and the Mayans. Now, the Mayans actually didn't say 2012. The Mayans actually said 2011 would be the start of an awakening, and I do believe they did get that correct, because I think that that huge earthquake that we had in Japan in 2011 was a real wake-up call to a lot of people. I know it was for me, because that's where my research was kind of beginning with, was all the earth changes, was all of this this shifting in our material plane that I could see that wasn't really making a lot of sense. There were changes happening. They were very subtle back there, but they were there. And so that's where my my research into all of this spirituality, you know, in a big way really started, because I did have little, you know, spurts and starts in looking at spirituality, but they never kind of really went very deeply. And it was 2011 that really got a lot of us looking a lot deeper into everything. And so we are becoming more conscious, and so this is basically what happens, is we are illuminating slowly, and then we will experience a huge surge of illumination, because the ether works like the tide. And if you understand the principle of rhythm, you will understand that everything works like the tide. Okay, everything has flow, everything has rhythm, and that includes the ether that goes and moves in and out of our material plane. And when there's more ether, there's more Christ consciousness. That's what I call it. I call it Christ consciousness. There's other words for it: Christ light, holy light, manna, Holy Spirit. But literally, the medium of ether allows that light, or that element of consciousness, Christ consciousness, to move into the material plane. And so we have access to parts of ourselves that we didn't have when we were in a more of a material time. And we're in the Iron Age right now, moving back into the Golden Age. And so the Iron Age is the most materialistic age of the great year. And so when we go into the star card in the tarot, what that is symbolizing is the illumination of humanity, and this will illuminate the divine race within humanity. And there are 288 individual souls within the divine race, also known as the gods with a little g. Okay, and that's what they're best known as, are the gods. And so modern humans, and this is with the help of the historians who are all corrupted, okay, and all financed by the Jesuits and the Catholic Church, have tried to confuse people in calling gods and religions that have multiple gods polytheists or polytheists. And that's just incorrect, okay? That's just a misinterpretation of the text, because if you actually look at the Hindu texts, the Hindus do actually have a prime creator, Vishnu. So the gods within the Hindu texts are the divine race, and it's the same with the Egyptians, it's the same with the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, it's the same with the Norse mythology, it's the same with all mythologies that talk about gods, okay? They are talking about the divine race. So what the modern Christians have done with the help of the Catholic Church is tried to say that there's only one divine man, and they don't even really call him a divine man anymore, even though it's mentioned that he is a divine man in the Bible, and he is the Son of God, and sons of God are also mentioned in the Bible as well, in the plural, and in the Torah too. The Catholic Church have actually brainwashed the congregation into believing that Jesus was the only Son of God, okay, the only begotten Son. I mean, how easy it is for them just to edit one word in the scriptures that they have had control of for 800 years. So all they had to do was change first begotten Son of God to only begotten Son of God, and see how easy it would be to then fool the congregation, who have now literally been fooled, except for the Jehovah's Witnesses, that Jesus is God. Jesus is literally God now. They all pray to Jesus. They just have elbowed God the Father out of the picture completely, and now they just focus everything on Jesus, and they pray to Jesus, and they've made Jesus God the Father. So this is how lost these people are, and don't try and even tell them that they are lost, because they will just not listen to you. They have no way to process the truth. They just can't. They're too far gone. Sometimes a human soul can be so far gone that there is just no hope to bring them back to the truth. There just is no hope. That they have hardened their hearts, and the Bible speaks of that too. And that is literally what happens in the material age. People harden themselves against the truth because they like their delusions, they like their beliefs, and that's what the modern Christian, and I'll say modern Catholic congregation, because all Christians are Catholics as far as I'm concerned. You all take your knowledge from the Catholic Church, so don't tell me differently when all of those books that went into that Bible were the choice of the Catholic Church. None of you go and read the Gnostic texts. None of you go and read the Gospel of Thomas. None of you go and read the Gospel of Philip. And if you read the Gospel of Thomas and then read the book of Matthew, you'd understand what the Catholic Church have actually done and what they've edited and what they've omitted from those texts to keep you stupefied, to keep you ignorant of the truth. But anyway, let's not go there. So the star card is the number 17 card, and so it's interesting that St. Patrick's Day is celebrated on the 17th of March. And I just wanted to read out a few quotes from different researchers and different philosophers in regards to the tarot. Okay, so you understand that the tarot isn't it kind of almost discredits my research, my work sometimes, when people look at the tarot and they just kind of shrug it off and go, oh, the tarot, it's just a stupid, fortune telling cards, and that's the problem. Okay, so you can't just dismiss the tarot, because they work in with the Kabbalah tree of life as well, but they're like tools. Okay, so the esoteric knowledge requires you to have certain tools to understand how to decode the texts. You need these tools, which are symbolism, numerology, the Kabbalah tree of life is another helpful one, astrology to a certain extent as well. There's all these certain tools that you need to be able to understand the texts the way they should be understood. Otherwise, you're just reading the information, the words, and they're not really making much sense to you. And so that then encourages you to make things up, okay, to make up and have your own opinion. All right. And that's when the Bible says, don't just rely on your own opinion. That's what it means. It doesn't mean don't go out and seek out knowledge. It means don't just rely on your own internal wisdom and opinion without first going and seeking out knowledge and wisdom so that you actually have knowledge and wisdom in the first place. So let's just read a couple of these verses so that when you understand that I'm talking about the tarot, you can start to see the tarot a little bit differently. And I do encourage anybody who is interested in esoteric knowledge and this knowledge that I'm discussing to go and buy a pack of Rider-Waite tarot cards. All tarot cards prior to, Rider and Waite, Rider-Waite, they do have some symbolism in them, but Rider-Waite knew about this knowledge and he encoded a lot of symbolism into the major arcana. They're the cards you want to concentrate on, the major arcana. Now, the other minor arcana do hold some symbols, of course, too, but it's the major arcana that are the most important cards when it comes to symbolism. And so that's what you want to go and look and study into, okay, and really study into it, and study into it using your own intellect as well, and then looking at the text, multiple texts. Now, somebody did ask me about the numerology. They said, I don't understand. I understand the numbers. I can see the numbers, but I don't understand where I can find what the numbers mean. Well, it's nowhere you're going to actually find a book and you just open up the pages and it just tells you, oh yes, that's what that means. You're never going to find that with this knowledge. It's never going to happen that way, guys. There's never one book. People say, oh, is there a book where you can tell me where I can find that information? No, there isn't. There isn't a book. There's no one book that you're going to look at that's going to give you everything. You need to go and research. You need to go and understand the numbers, research into sacred geometry. Now, I have done a series called Mystery Teachings of Ancient Egypt, and that does go into the numerology of the tarot and the Kabbalah tree of life. I've basically used both of these tools to pull out information and to understand, and I've used it with sacred geometry so we can get an understanding from the numerology. But let me just give you a disclaimer on those videos. That was my very first series of first discovering this knowledge and putting it together in the first layer. I hadn't even understood that there was a divine race. I'd literally just found out that the soul was male and female when it was created, and then it split apart and to be birthed into the material form. That's all I really knew at that stage. So I have a very limited understanding still of the numerology and the symbols in the cards. So just understand that when you're looking at those videos. But hey, that's where we all start, okay? We have to start at the beginning. And so it's a good place for you to start too, because then as you see the rest of my videos, you see how I'm putting the fragments together and getting a clearer and clearer picture. And so it's like layers of, of an onion. You're peeling it back. Well, this way, or as I like to say, it's like a foundation that you've begun with something at the bottom, the very first, the slab, and then you're building upon it. And that's basically what you have to do with this knowledge. You have to start somewhere and then build upon it. And so a good place to start is the Hermetic principles. Okay, you can weigh and measure everything against Hermetic principles. But then you build upon that using other tools, using symbolism, using the Kabbalah tree of life, using sacred geometry, using colors. I mean, even colors are symbols as well. So anyway, let's read a couple of these quotes. So the first one is from Edward Waite, from the Rider-Waite Tarot cards. And he said, the true tarot is symbolism. It speaks no other language and offers no other signs. Okay? So that's all the tarot is. It's symbolism. So if you want to understand symbolism, if you want to be a symbolist, if people get caught up in labels, but if that's what you want to understand, the language of symbolism, go to the tarot. Study the tarot. Okay? Study the number of the tarot card. And start to look into the symbols, because that is a whole other section of this knowledge that you must understand if you want to study the text. And that includes the Kolbrin, okay? A lot of the Kolbrin is parables as well, okay? It's stories. And you will need to understand symbolism to actually understand the Kolbrin. And it looks like 5Sight 2012 hasn't actually been listening in on the rules of the chat. Okay, so guys, I know people get excited when you first find others are talking about this type of knowledge, okay, and you want to say things, but you've got to understand that every time you put an opinion down that isn't aligned with what we're studying here, you're sending somebody else off the path. That is a responsibility you have as well as somebody who is in possession of this knowledge. So you need to make sure that when you're putting out information that it's correct information, because that's going to weigh on you in the end. If you're sending other people off the path because you just want to hold on to opinions and beliefs because you aren't, I know there are a lot of you, and I can tell by the by the comments that I see from time to time that still aren't going and looking at the texts. You still think that you can just listen to me and watch a few of my videos and you've got it. You've got enough that's all you need, and you've got a full picture now. And that's really, you're just doing yourself a disservice. Because I can tell when people have actually gone and studied the text and are starting to really get a handle of this knowledge. And it's really unfortunate to see people still on my stream. What am I, a month into this now? And still, you haven't actually gone and studied any of the texts. So, look, good luck with that, guys. If you just want to listen in because it's interesting, that's fine, but please don't put down any opinions because they will be removed, because there are people here, and they're normally the ones that don't comment at all, okay, who are actually going and studying the texts and actually do have a really good handle of this knowledge. And they're the ones that don't chat, that don't feel that they need to give their opinion, because sometimes I think when you give your opinion, you're actually just trying to reassert it to yourself. It's a way of you confirming your beliefs to you, and you want other people to agree with you so that solidifies your own belief even more. And so really look into that behavior of the need to continually put forth your opinion about things, because really, when you have a good handle of this knowledge, you don't feel a need to do that. And as I said, I'd like to start seeing some of you guys that follow me on these streams starting to really understand this knowledge at the level that you should be understanding it at now, because there really is no excuse. So that was anyway the verse from, or the quote from Arthur Waite. And then we've got from Eliphas Levi. Now I know a lot of you are going to be, Eliphas Levi, what about Baphomet? Yeah, well, Baphomet isn't actually evil, okay? And I'm not, and maybe I'll do a video on that, because it's just ridiculous, okay? The Satanists and the Antichrist have grabbed that actual esoteric drawing illustration from Eliphas Levi, and they've twisted it into something that it isn't, because it looks a bit evil because it's got horns. But you know what? There are statues of Moses with horns. Does that mean Moses was evil? Because do you know what horns actually mean? They mean possession of knowledge. And we know that the possession of knowledge can be used for good or evil, because we only have to look at the Catholic Church and look at how they're using knowledge. Okay, so anyway, Eliphas Levi, he said, an imprisoned person with no other book than the tarot, if he knew how to use it, could in a few years acquire universal knowledge and will be able to speak on all subjects with unequaled learning and inexhaustible eloquence. Jack Parsons, now this guy's quite interesting, Jack Parsons, if you look into him. He was a rocket engineer, chemist, and Thelemite occultist who coincidentally died in an explosion when he was 37 years old. Probably got a little bit too close to the truth and was giving out a bit too much information. And he basically goes on to say, remember, the tarot is a great and sacred arcanum. Its abuse is an obscenity in the inner and a folly in the outer. It is intended for quite other purposes than to determine when the dark tall man will meet the fair rich widow. Okay, again. And then Samuel Ornweir, and I've probably said that wrong, and I will actually post a copy of these notes in the MeWe Keepers of the Flame group underneath the post of this video. When the live stream becomes a video, I'll post it in the group, Keepers of the Flame. There is a link underneath the video, and then you can join the group and see all the notes for this stream. They will be available there. And so he goes on to say, every erudite occultist, all esoteric, oh my God, me and trying to, okay, every erudite occultist and all esotericists must always call on the standard of measures, the tarot, if they do not want to fall into the absurd. Okay, so they're just a few quotes that let you know that the tarot is symbolism. So go and have a look at the 17 card, which is the star. Understand that it connects to the illumination of the Christ and the Christed, because Jesus the Christ is the firstborn of the Christed, which are the divine race, the 288 souls, the 288 gods, and they will illuminate. That is coming. And when they illuminate, they will take control of the kingdom that is their kingdom, that was granted and gifted to them, created for them by God the Father. Okay, that is why it is said that the king has a divine right to rule. It doesn't mean the king that the Antichrist instated has a divine right to rule because the Catholic Church say so. It's that God the Father, the creator, the prime creator, the all, the mind of the all, has created our kingdom, his kingdom, our planet, our earth, as the kingdom for his children, his divine children. And then from his children, the mortal man are created, the clay man are created. And so they will illuminate and they will be known among mankind. They will be known. Okay? And this is probably why they are pushing this alien psyops, this whole, alien UFO brainwashing of the masses, because when that happens, there are a lot of people that will think that the divine race, that the gods are aliens, okay? And that's why they also push that the pyramids, were built by aliens and this whole ancient aliens thing, when it's really, it was the divine race who created all of these mind-blowing monuments and structures that even our modern architects and engineers cannot understand. And the way that they have tried to explain how these huge structures were built with such precision with ropes and logs is so ludicrous, and more people are actually, you know, discovering how ludicrous it is. And if any of you doubt how ludicrous this is, all you have to do is push your teacher at school, at your brainwashing institute or your university to explain in detail how those huge blocks could have been moved in place every minute and a half by blocks, you know, by ropes and logs, okay? And they won't be able to do that. So this is what the Antichrists are hiding. This is the big secret, okay? This is the keys that they have stolen. This is the door that they don't want you to walk through and open, because once you realize that there is a divine race, you know, also known as the tribes of Israel, not the current Israelis that live in a place that was created in 1947. Unfortunately, those people that follow the texts of Judaism are not the Israelites and the tribes of Israel in the Bible. They will be sad to find that truth out, and they will find that truth out the hard way, unfortunately. But this is also another Antichrist ploy, who have literally given them all of this knowledge and information and encouragement to believe that they are the chosen ones. And it will actually be shown that the chosen ones are the divine race, and they were chosen by nobody else other than the creator, the prime creator, because they are the anchor, the first anchor of the divine mind, the all, God the creator, the prime creator, that is basically extended from God onto the physical plane. And that is what the anchor symbolism represents. And then from that, everything else is created. Okay, and that is why it is said that everything is created through Jesus. Okay, Jesus is just a symbol. Okay, there are plenty other symbols for the firstborn son of the divine creator. I know I've spoken about them in other streams as well. So this is why that we have all of this disinformation and these psyops that are played on us by the Catholic Church, and one of them being St. Patrick's Day. And as I've said, there is nothing sadder than watching an Irish person celebrate St. Patrick's Day, because literally when an Irish person is celebrating St. Patrick's Day, they are celebrating their own destruction, the destruction of their own divine ancestors, the destruction of their own divine nature. They have literally handed over their souls and their divine portion to the Antichrists. There's nothing sadder than watching that. And because they're so heavily brainwashed now, I mean, it's been centuries in the making. You just cannot, you cannot give people the truth. It's so horrible when you try to reveal the truth to these people, and they cannot process it and will refuse to process it. So anyway, so if you want to actually go and look at the star card, you will see underneath the video that there is a Pinterest site, a folder that I have created on my Pinterest account, and I have just put the tarot symbols of the major arcana in there, and a few other symbols as well, that as we discussed in these live streams, that you can actually bring them up then, and then you can look at the symbolism of the cards as I'm describing them. And in future streams, I will actually go a lot more into the symbols of each of the tarot cards, okay? Now, before I go into about all of the deception around St. Patrick, and it was very easy to find the deception, okay? Very, very easy to find the deception. One of the students of the teachings, Anna, is very gifted in researching all of this type of historical knowledge surrounding the Catholic Church and their crusades and how they enacted their evil on medieval Europe and medieval the UK. And so she has verified a lot of what I found to make sure that I got it right. And she was pretty gobsmacked herself at just, how much bullshit the Catholic Church have literally put together to make up this story about this St. Patrick that is literally a fabrication. And it's so easy to punch holes into it because it's just such a flimsy fabrication that cannot be there is no text in existence that was written around the time of supposedly when St. Patrick went into Ireland and performed all these miracles. It is a complete fabrication of the Catholic Church created in around the 1500s. So anyway, before I go into that, so why they've basically falsified this knowledge and linked it to Ireland is because this is one of the last places that the divine race were illuminated still. So what happens is as we go down the great year, the divine race lose their illumination. They lose access to their light. And so they become, they sink more and more into materialism, and eventually they just resemble mortal man, and nobody can tell who is a divine and who is a mortal. Okay, so divine man, mortal man, you have to understand that there is a difference. Okay, everything is in degrees. Okay, and this is also in relation to the principle of correspondence and the principle of polarity, and everything is in basically a level of degrees from highest to lowest. And we can look at that even within the ethereal plane, which is at the highest, and then it goes down in density to matter. Okay, and so we can apply this to the great year. And so during the golden age, the divine race are illuminated. They are the gods. They are the guardians of the mortals, of humanity. But as we go down the cycle and we lose access to the ether and access to the Christ light, because as I said before, the ether is like the tide, and the tide goes out. Okay, and you can have a look at the astrological symbol of Cancer, and Aquarius relates to this too. And Jofre Bow's chart does some really, really good illustrations, painting symbolic representations of each of the astrological signs and the symbolism behind them. And so the ether recedes, okay, and so the Christed lose access to their divine portion and they become like mortals. Now, I think Ireland was the very last place where the divine race and their ancestry could be traced by the Antichrist, by the Catholic Church. I mean, so the Antichrist literally took control of the Catholic Church, okay? So at one stage, Christianity wasn't corrupted, okay? And then it became corrupted, and they used that as a cover, and they still use that as a cover to this very day. And so hiding behind their robes, hiding behind their godly exterior, they took control of the knowledge, and they basically took control of the beliefs of humanity and created their own reality. That's basically what they've done. And so, as I've said before, they established all of the universities. They are the hidden hand behind all of the science departments, okay, all of the funding, all right. Everything comes from the Catholic Church, all right, who are their own country, by the way. The Vatican is its own country with its own bank and its own laws. Okay, they are not accountable to any other law, all right? If they choose, if one of their deacons or their archbishops, which you'll never see an archbishop ever, that go to jail, that they literally choose to either play out the script and let people think, oh yeah, we'll send that one out into the public arena. But mostly you can see that when it comes to their finances, anything like that is done within their own justice system, okay? And they're not accountable to anybody else. And we know there's been a lot of fraud around the Antichrist Catholic Church. And I mean, There are photos of all the gold that they literally sit amongst, you know. And do they really look like humble men of God? When you look at Jesus saying, you know, if you want to be like me, give away all your possessions. Did you ever see Jesus sitting among goblets of gold and dripping with gold and all of this bullshit like hats? And I mean, they've just created all this ritualistic bullshit to make themselves seem important, okay? And it's so easy to brainwash humanity. The hive mind is very easy to be brainwashed, and that's what we can see. Social media has been our downfall, because they've literally all got us easily attached to their narrative now, okay, and controlled by their narrative. Even the controlled opposition, which is what Trump is, okay, and I hate to bring him up in this stream, and when I do my news and updates, I will mention what's going on with him, because it's all just theatre. It's all a circus. They're all the same. They're all controlled by the Antichrist. And this is what's happened throughout humanity, throughout history, modern history. So the Teutha de Danann went to Ireland. They were the last of the divine race where we could actually probably understand that there was still a solid way to trace the ancestral bloodlines of the divine race in Ireland. So they knew for sure that the divine race were definitely in Ireland. And Ireland was a small enough place where they could easily bring in their own controls and instate their own evil and their own laws on the people there. So just for those who aren't familiar with the Teutha de Danann, I'll just go over who they were, and then we'll go on to how the Catholic Church basically twisted the mythologies around the Teutha de Danann into their own mythologies around this fraud that they created, St. Patrick. So the legend of the Teutha de Danann tells of a race of divine beings or gods who possessed supernatural powers, and they arrived in Ireland shrouded in a mist, which is basically the mist symbolised the ether. So they arrived in Ireland when they still had access to the ether, because as I said, as we're going down the Great Year into the Silver Age, so we've got the Golden Age, Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age. We're now in the Iron Age, going back in the Golden Age, but when we're in the Silver Age, and somewhat into the Bronze Age, we still see who the gods are, who the divine are, as opposed to the mortal man. They still have access to their divine portion, and that's why when the Teutha de Danann first arrived in Ireland, they still had access to their powers, to their supernatural powers, because they do have gifts where they can do things. They can, they do have skills that mortal men don't have. And so the ether is still that when they are arriving in Ireland shrouded in mist, that is symbolising that they arrived in Ireland still when there was ether available and they were still known. They wouldn't have been as powerful as they were in the Golden Age or at the beginning of the Silver Age, but they still would have been some way to know who the divine were as opposed to who mortals were. This race of divine beings were led by a king called Nuada and a queen called Danu. Now, if you look at the word Nuada, it's an anagram, because you can find Dan within the word Nuada. And a queen called Danu, remove the U and you've got Dan again. And so now we're looking at the word Dan, and we're seeing that can be related to the tribe of Dan, which can be basically traced throughout Europe. I mean, we've got Denmark. I mean, Denmark used to be called Denmark, Mark of Dan, okay? And the Teutha de Danann, okay? So we're seeing Dan again, all right? And the tribe of Dan are symbolised by you can see the pictures that I'm showing you in the loop that I'm doing for the stream. They're symbolised by the serpent and the eagle, okay? And so ridding Ireland of snakes is not too hard to understand when you understand the symbolism connected to the Teutha de Danann, and that was the symbolism of the serpent, because the Teutha de Danann were the tribe of Dan, and they were the tribes of Israel. Okay, they were the first born of the tribes of Israel, the messiahs of the tribes of Israel, because I have explained in other streams that each of the races are represented in the tribes of Israel: the white race, the red race, the black race, and the yellow race. And each of the tribes have a male and female messiah. And so the tribe of Dan, the male and female messiah of the tribe of Dan were the King Nuada and Queen Danu, when you relate that to the Teutha de Danann. Okay? So there are accounts of the Teutha de Danann and Goddess Danu in various parts of Europe, Norway, Austria, Denmark, as I said, Denmark, and even ancient Greece. Some even say they fled from Atlantis when it sunk beneath the ocean. And I have read out that excerpt from Plato's Critias about the Atlanteans and how it's describing the divine race losing their access to their divine light as they move down into materialism. And basically the Silver Gate is when we have a huge cataclysm, continents are sinking beneath the oceans and continents are rising above the oceans, displacing everybody, and it's basically a reset, pushing and shaking the divine out of the golden age and out of their established roles, and where they've become quite comfortable, and it's the beginning of the descent into the lower parts of the great year, the lower ages of the great year. And just as the tribes of Israel are separated into 4 clans, the Teutha de Danann were also separated into 4 clans, symbolised by different cities and poets and different kings. Each of the 4 kings of each of the 4 cities or clans possessed a magical item, which is really just a symbol to differentiate each of the different clans or tribes within the Teutha de Danann. So first we have Sword of Nuada, which was said to be the sword of light, and so the tribe of Dan is also symbolised by the sword. Then we have the Stone of Fowl, and that is the Stone of Destiny, which was said to roar with joy when the rightful king placed his foot upon it. That is equated to the tribe of Reuben, which is the red race. Then we've got the Cauldron of Dagda, which was said to never empty and nobody ever left unsustained or unsatisfied. And Dagda is basically connected to the tribe of Ephraim, which is the yellow race. And then we've got the Spear of Lug or Lug. No battle was ever sustained against it, or the man that held it was never defeated. And the Spear of Lug or Lug, tribe of Lug is, or clan of Lug is connected to the tribe of Judah, the black race. Okay? So now we have a little bit of a background into the Teutha de Danann and how they're representing the 288 divine. Do you need me to block? Let me just see. How do I block? I'm trying to see if I can block 5-side. Obviously, you're having a bit of a trouble. Okay, maybe you can you click on their actual name, Lisa, and see if you can block them that way? 5-side, can you run along, please? All you're doing is creating white noise, or we're actually starting to think maybe you're a shill here to try and send people off their path. Piss off. You're not wanted, okay? If all you're going to be is just here to natter and chatter and give your ignorant opinion, piss off. We don't want you here. You're annoying me. All I can see is Lisa having to delete your messages instead of interact in the stream in more of a positive way. Right. So now that we understand a bit more about the divine race, okay, and how they're connected to the Teutha de Danann, let's have a look at some other things. Now, in the last stream I did, if you weren't present in the last stream, you'll know that I did a stream in regards to the king, the false messiah. He's going to be crowned as the false messiah. Okay? The false messiah is going to be somebody that nobody expected. Would anybody expect that bumbling idiot Prince Charles with the big flappy ears was going to be a false messiah. So no, everybody just sees him as an idiot. Well, he's very evil. Okay, he's very, very evil. And his whole persona of trying to play the idiot, the bumbling fool, the mama's boy, it's just an act. It's an act, okay? And he is going to be crowned on the 6th of May as the false messiah and the false king, okay? He's basically literally going to be crowned as the king of the antichrists, okay? Because they are literally mirroring the truth, okay, about the divine race. So they've got their own script that they are creating that mirrors how the divine operates on the material plane and on the ethereal plane. So the divine operation of the ethereal and material planes, they are mimicking this in their own way. They literally mimic how the creator acts upon material, you know, the material world. They act it in their own way. They are the hidden hand, okay? And so the chair that the false king is going to be coronated on May the 6th contains the stone of fail, or the stone of destiny. And remember, I just read that out, which was said to roar with joy when the rightful king placed his foot upon it. Yes, well, he's not the rightful king, but he's going to make himself the king. And well, they are going to make him their king, and he is going to be the false messiah. And things are going to really descend into a lot of chaos after May the 6th. So be prepared for that, because they are going to definitely up the ante when it comes to their script, because that's literally what we're existing in right now, an antichrist script. Everything that's happening right now is their script, just like they scripted St. Patrick and they falsified and made up this complete story about this person that never even existed, and everyone thinks it's true and everyone celebrates it all around the world every year. They've done this exact thing to humanity in regards to our reality. The reality that we live at the moment is so false. It is a complete it's an illusion. And they are all part of a script. They are all actors of a script, okay? Every single politician that you see, even when they act like they hate each other, every single world leader, even when they act like they hate each other, they're all playing their part in a script. And they're all moving us towards their own apocalypse. Okay, their own unveiling. They will unveil themselves eventually to us. We're not there yet. The earth changes have to get a little bit worse before they start really pushing ahead with their script. And you'll find that things are starting to become very unstable with our weather patterns, because the jet stream has weakened so much now, and we're getting a lot more activity from the sun that's interacting with our own magnetic magnetosphere, which is weakening. Our own magnetic field is weakening, and then that is causing definite changes to our weather patterns. We're seeing a lot more destructive storms. We're seeing a lot more anomalies when it comes to hot and cold temperatures, and you're seeing that they happen basically one after the other. You'll see that you get a heat wave, a hot anomaly, a hot temperature anomaly, and they'll make a big deal about that because of all this global warming stuff. But then you'll see that it's followed by a really severe cold anomaly, okay? And then they'll just dismiss that, or they'll make a couple of very, quiet articles about that, but, they won't really talk much about that. It'll be whenever they have a hot temperature anomaly, they just scream it over all of the headlines, and I mean, even here in Australia, we're used to having 35-degree days here in summer. I mean, go back to our records, decades ago, and you will see that that is the norm for us in Australia. We normally have a few days every summer where it gets really hot, 35 degrees, and now they're calling them heat waves. They're calling 35 degrees in Australia a heat wave. When a heat wave is in Australia, where you have to kind of go, wow, that's pretty, it's like 42 degrees. Now, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but I'm telling you, they are literally just creating this narrative to hide the earth changes, and they're blaming it on humans. And so I have to be careful in how I word all of this, because Basically, YouTube, Google has algorithms that go through all of my live streams word for word. And I've seen this on previous live streams where they've actually segmented my live streams now, and they've put the things that I was talking about, the subjects in that part of the live stream, they've actually segmented it and used that. So that's how they are combing through all of my information that I'm giving you. So I have to be careful with how I word some things. But anyway, so we're living a script, guys. I can't put it any more than that. Don't get caught up in it. I don't want to hear your opinions on, different politicians and what you think they're doing, because as soon as you're actually giving me an opinion about what you think a certain politician is, or what he's doing, or why he's trying to do what he's doing, it means that you're still brainwashed into believing that the script that they are playing is real. And so you still have work to do. Until you can look at them as though they're all actors on a stage and they're all just playing their parts, then you are not there yet, my friend. And you have a lot of work to do to remove that brainwashing, because none of them are there for you. It is us, each other against them. Okay? So we need to stop bickering amongst each other based along political tribalism, and we need to start understanding that they're doing this to us on purpose, and that's why they have controlled opposition, to continue having us bicker amongst each other. So we know that the Catholic Church and the royals are now using the Teuta de Danann symbolism with their coronation of their false Messiah and their false king. And so they really do have this obsession with the Teuta de Danann, the tribe of Dan. And we can see that in how that they're actually using symbols from the Teuta de Danann for their false Messiah. But we can actually see it's connected to the false fabrication, the false Saint Patrick, and the fabrication of Saint Patrick. So the story goes, for those of you who don't actually know what the story is around St. Patrick. He arrived in Ireland as a slave, apparently, all the way back in the 5th century, so about 1,500 years ago. Now, it's interesting because, as I said, one of the students of the teachings is very well versed in studying this part of history, and she's literally found that there's really not any mention in any of the other texts that are basically documenting all of the Christianizing missions into England. They are very well documented by the Christian Catholic Church, okay? So it's interesting that when they've documented all of these other missions into England, where they've Christianized, parts of Britain and England, that they haven't actually documented anything about St. Patrick and the Christianization of Ireland. That's quite interesting. And you'd think that, they do that. And it's interesting too that they've never formally canonized St. Patrick. And they've done this with other ancient saints that are no longer alive. And their excuse is that, because the laws around canonizing saints, back then they weren't there, so that's why they've never done it. Bullshit, because they've done it to other saints, right? The supposed saints, they're mortal saints that they've canonized. But the reason I think that they haven't canonized St. Patrick is that they know that their story around St. Patrick, their fabrication of St. Patrick, is so flimsy that as soon as they start putting any attention on this, anybody who has any bit of interest in researching the ancient history of Britain and Ireland would see all of these holes. And so they just don't want to open that can of worms. They just leave that be because they've brainwashed everybody enough. Why go revisiting that when it's so successful? So basically the story goes, that he arrived as a slave in Ireland 1,500 years ago, so around the 500s. They're not quite sure though, anywhere from the 300s to 500s it says. So they really, couple of hundred years, who cares, couple of hundred years, give or take, They can't really pinpoint exactly when he arrived, but he arrived there apparently. And most of what we know about St. Patrick was actually written by a guy called Thady Dowling between 1632 and 1636 in something called the Irish Annals. And he wrote that in Latin. Surprise, surprise. Okay. And, you know, that's interesting because, you know, the Catholic Church used to do all of the sermons in Latin back around the 1500s, all right? And you were not allowed to read a Bible in English or do a sermon in English. You could only listen to the sermon in Latin. And if you wanted to read the Bible, you would have to go to a Catholic clergyman who understood Latin, and he would read the Bible to you and he would interpret the Latin for you and tell you what the Bible meant. And anybody who tried to translate the Bible from Latin into English was literally burned at the stake. Literally burned at the stake. And now we have these idiotic modern Christians, these idiotic Catholics who still want to align themselves with this organization who were burning people at the stake, you know, 500-600 years ago, burning people in front of their children, hacking people to death in front of their children, hacking children to death, torturing people in dungeons, all because they wouldn't accept the Catholic canon. These people still want to align themselves with this organisation, and not only do they want to align themselves with this organisation, these modern Catholics are now trying to have their sermons once again said in Latin. Even though they don't understand a frickin' word of Latin themselves, they think it makes them more spiritual if they hear the actual sermon in Latin, in something they don't even effing understand. This is what idiots they are. And there were people that literally died for them to be able to read their Bible in English. And they are literally spitting in the faces of these martyrs who died trying to be able to bring them this knowledge in a language that they understood. And these morons, these absolute effing morons, are trying to have their sermons spoken in Latin once again. So this is just what sickens me, absolutely sickens me about these modern Catholics. Not only are they still proudly aligned with an organisation that basically caused so much misery and murder and death to innocent people, they're now spitting in the faces of those who tried to bring them their Bible in English, that they now have the luxury of reading in English today, mind you. Yeah, these people, there is no hope for them. No hope. Right, so this dude, Thady Dowling, right? So he wrote the Irish Annals, which is where most of the information about this fabricated story of St. Patrick can be found. And he used a number of manuscripts which, guess what, no longer exist. Yes. Apparently, Thady Dowling wrote the Irish Annals using manuscripts from the 500s, around that time. But guess what, guys? Yeah, they don't exist anymore. We just have to believe that they existed back then. So all we have are a few copies of some of the books, but they're just copies of the books that supposedly existed 1500 years ago that we don't know existed because, well, we don't have any of the books in existence anymore. See how the Catholic Church work? So it's all just based on them telling us what to believe is true. And this Thady Dowling was a real piece of work because he was basically very connected to the Catholic Church, and he was appointed treasurer of the Leyland the Leyland Church, the Leyland I'm not even going to try and say it because I'm been talking for a while and then I start to mix up the way I pronounce things. So yeah, he was very connected to the Leyland Catholic sector in Ireland, and he was basically instated there by the Dublin Vicar General John Bale, and in 1951 he was promoted to the vacant post of Chancellor when the Vicar General of Leyland, Fergal Cure, died, and then he assumed the responsibilities of his office. So he was just free to write whatever he wanted. Took full control. And so then basically what the Catholic Church did, using the myth of St. Patrick to legitimise their own Christian customs, laws and rituals on the Irish people. So back when they brought St. Patrick into the Irish communities, they would have just told the Irish people these mythologies and stories and made them believe it. And if they didn't believe it, they would be cursed, they would be blamed for failing crops, they would be called evil, they would be called demonic, they would have their houses burnt down, they would be burned at the stake in the middle of the town square, in front of their children, in front of their families. This is how the Catholic Church worked. And what they did was they'd go to these villages and these towns, and they would build a church. And they would tell everybody in the town, this is how they brought Christianity to Ireland, the Catholic Church. This is for all of you Catholics, for all of you people still following this organisation. You have blood on your hands. You have the deaths of these people on your heads if you do not denounce the Catholic organisation right now. They literally built a church in these villages, in these towns, and they would tell the whole town that they would have to go to this church on Sunday and listen to the sermon, because otherwise they were evil. They were still idol worshippers, because remember, a lot of the people who were still in Ireland would have remembered the Tuatha Dé Danann, and so they would have actually still been praising Tuatha Dé Danann, okay, and following the religion of Tuatha Dé Danann. The Druids were the priests, were their priests, okay, that were teaching them, would teach them about the Tuatha Dé Danann, their divine race, their true royalty. And they would have been teaching them about God the Father of and creator of the Tuatha Dé Danann. And so the Catholic Church had to pry away that grip that the Druids had on the minds of the Irish people. And they did this by building the churches, by rounding up the Druids and killing the Druids, which is why we pretty much don't have really anything left of the Druids at all, other than a few mentions in other texts. But as for any real knowledge from the Druids, we don't have that anymore. It was all destroyed by the Catholic Church. Oh, look, I'm sure that it's in their library underneath the Vatican, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of knowledge in that library that they've got that we think, oh, well, it's no longer in existence anymore. That's sad. Oh, no, it actually is in their library, in the Catholic Church. So basically they would have built a church in these villages and towns. They would have told everybody, you have to go to this sermon every Sunday. And then they would have identified who the families were that refused to give up their own beliefs, their own truths, and go and believe what the Catholic Church were telling them. And so once they identified who wasn't going to the church, all they used to do was just make an example of them, burn them on a stake in the middle of the street. Normally what they would have done is blame them on things. You know, someone got murdered, oh, that was that person because they're demonic. You know, make a crop fail, kill some of their dairy cows. I mean, the Catholic Church are evil. So evil. The men behind these robes, these cloaks, are so evil. They literally when they were slaughtering the Cathars, they gave one of the conquistadors the go-ahead to go into a village and slaughter these Cathars, these Gnostics that refused to accept the Catholic doctrine. And the general, or conquistador, whatever his name was, I forget now, or was it, yeah, it was the Pope that told him, I think it was Pope Innocent. I mean, they even laugh in our faces with the names they call themselves. He asked the Pope, well, how do I know who is a heathen, who is, and who is a believer? And the Pope said, just kill them all. Let God sort them out. Just go in, genocide the entire town, slaughter, hack them to pieces, however you have to do it. I don't even care. And let God sort out who are the real believers and who are. This is how evil these people are. And you must understand they have complete control of our system right now. Complete control of everything that you see in the media, in social media, in your education system. Why do you think they're brainwashing our children right now? They're attacking our children who are the purest of purest souls, who the Antichrist absolutely hate. And they are attacking them right now, encouraging them to vandalize their bodies, cut their bodies up, encouraging parents to take their children to shows, to sexually provocative shows, to sexually provocative parades. Again, I have to watch what I'm saying because I'll actually get my channel taken down for literally talking about the immoral behavior of society right now. So if that doesn't tell you where we're at right now, guys, I don't know what is going to tell you where we're at. If you think that this is normal right now, then you've got a lot of work to do, because that's their brainwashing. Their brainwashing is literally encouraging people to think that the behavior that we are now viewing in our society, in our shows. I mean, Netflix was literally created so they could create content to brainwash us with all of this degeneracy. Okay? So, yeah. Right, so literally this is how the Catholic Church worked in Ireland, okay? So they crushed the Irish people. They crushed anything that they previously believed in and were taught by the Druids about their own divine race and the divinity within humanity and their God the Father, okay? Because every single human on this planet has the same Father, the same God, okay? We all come from the one Creator. It doesn't matter if you're, a Muslim. It doesn't matter if you're a Hindu. It doesn't matter if you're, you follow Judaism. It doesn't matter. We are all created from the same God. There's not different gods. Okay, it's the same God. And so every single so-called pagan, and I really hate that word because true pagans believe in one God, okay? They don't believe in many gods. This is just the bastardization of paganism using Wicca, which is a modern religion, and it's absolute bullshit. It's literally part of the New Age disinformation movement. And Wiccans are just, ignorant, just like New Agers and modern Christians, because Wicca, there's no such thing as Wicca. And pagans didn't believe in multiple gods, didn't believe in a woman creator. They believed in a creator, and they would have known that the creator is androgynous. So if you want to see the creator as female, you can see the creator as female. If you want to see the creator as male, it is male. I prefer, as I've said previously, to see the creator as male, which is why I say God the Father. I just prefer personally to see the creator as a fatherly figure. You, however, may prefer to see the creator as a female, womanly figure, feminine. It doesn't really matter because the creator is androgynous. All you have to do is recognize that there is a prime creator of your soul. And a portion of your soul is connected to the Creator. You carry a portion of divinity within your soul, and the degree of divinity goes from high to low, like everything in the universe. It's the chain of being. That's why I like to always use the symbolism of the chain of being. So Google that, the chain of being, and you'll see that there is a really good illustration where it shows the ethereal plane and basically a chain going all the way down to the material plane, and the most densest form of life in the material plane, which I think is insects and reptiles. Okay, so everything is in a chain, and so even our souls have a degree of divinity, and the highest degree of divinity is the divine man, and there are 288 divine individual souls, and they even vary in degrees of divinity from gold, silver to bronze, because the bronze are the demigods. They were created a little bit differently than the gold and the silver degrees of the divine race. Okay, and I've spoken about that in previous streams as well. So we have basically the Catholic Church destroying the knowledge, this knowledge about the divinity, the divine portion within all of us, because they want us all to be sinners, all right? We're all nothing but sinners. Disgusting little worm. From the moment you left your mother's womb, you were nothing but a sinner. I mean, that's what they want us to believe, that we're never worthy. Now, look, the truth is that we're always going to sin, okay? Because sin is literally just collecting weight in our soul, and we do that whenever we move out of alignment with the universal laws, okay? So there's universal laws that were created when the universe was created. It's part of the divine operation on the ethereal plane and the physical plane, and when we move out of alignment of those laws, okay, and number 11, the Justice card in the tarot, basically is symbolizing those laws that we must be in alignment with. Now, when we move out of alignment by different degrees, again, because everything is in different degrees, principle of polarity, we accrue weight in our soul. And so, you know, we go back into alignment again, and maybe we do something really nice for somebody, and then that, you know, that kind of removes the weight. I mean, this is how the universe works on an ethereal level. Okay, so you don't need a priest to forgive you of your sins. All right, what a joke that is, that you can go to some mortal priest who sits there in his little box and you can just tell him all the things you did wrong and he can forgive you. That's not how it works. Okay, you need to redeem yourself. It's self-redemption. Okay, and you need to do that by moving back into alignment with those divine laws, and they're pretty basic laws. Okay, it's nothing too difficult. Literally, you know when you're out of alignment anyway, because you don't feel good about your behavior. All right, or you try to make excuses for it. Well, I did it because, you know, that and this, and like when you find yourself doing that, then you know, well, why am I making all these excuses up for what I just did? Okay, so we all do it. No one's perfect, okay, but it doesn't mean that we're you know, disgusting sinners. It just means that living an experience on the material plane will require you to learn from your mistakes, and mistakes are made by moving out of alignment with divine law. So it's just a process of our experience on the material plane. So basically the Antichrist have used it as a weapon, though. So they've used it as, you know, if you're a sinner, then you need to die, because, you know, a sinner is evil, full of demons. And this is basically what they would have done to the Irish. They would have basically made the Irish who didn't go to church on the Sundays, they were sinners because they were pagans, they were worshipping idols, and therefore they needed to be burned at the stake and purified. Okay? So they are so evil, guys. If you only just understood how evil these people were. I don't think most of us, probably not even me, and I know, I'm pretty sure that I understand the depth of their depravity and evil, because it is a superhuman type of evil. It is beyond basic evil. Okay, it is like they have to try really hard to be as evil as they are, and I'm probably not even aware of the full depth of depravity that because there are things that you can't even imagine that is just so evil about them that we can't even, it's not possible for us to even understand it, because it doesn't even enter our scope of, processing and, experience on the material plane just as a normal human soul. I mean, it is truly, truly wicked that these people and what they are and what they're doing to children right now too, with all of this child trafficking. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you the misery and the horrors that they are putting children through right now that have just disappeared off the radar. They are being tortured. They are being raped. They are being literally, they are literally experiencing hell on earth. And I am not by any stretch of the imagination even just, over, trying to make this something that isn't. It's happening. It's happening. So we need to understand the level of depravity and evil we are, and they're moving into the next phase. After they've crowned their false messiah, I can tell you now, you think that things like what happened in Ohio and all of this, oh, sorry, there's too much lead in baby food. What the? Too much lead? What? Don't give your child any processed food. Do not feed your child any processed formulas, okay? They are tainting everything, and they're putting just minimal amounts in there so that it builds up over time in your child's system. And then, wow, your child has leukemia suddenly when they turn 4. Gee, how could God do that? How could a just God give a 4-year-old child leukemia? See, this is how atheists' minds work, when they don't even realize that it's us, humans, creating our own misery, and even us just being part of the system right now and just existing on the material plane right now have, in a way, incrementally allowed this to happen, because we've allowed these people to take power. Anyway. So, some of the myths, right, that they've created around St. Patrick is they apparently said he was born on a flagstone. Now, for those that don't know what a flagstone is, it's literally like the base of what you build a building upon. So before they had concrete, back in the medieval times, they would quarry flagstone, which was this really flat stone that had like sedimentary layers that were like pancakes that they could pry apart, and then they could lay that out as the base for what they would build their building upon, their house upon. So some of the myths that they created were that, he was born on a flagstone. Now, remember what they called Jesus? The cornerstone? And remember how Jesus is symbolized by basically the cornerstone that they built everything upon? So see how the Catholic Church take parts of the scriptures, which were written before the Catholic Church. Now, I'm not saying that the Catholic Church wrote the scriptures. I'm saying they took possession of the scriptures and they edited them, and they censored parts of them and omitted parts of them and changed parts of them to create their own story around Jesus. And so they take parts of these actual parables in the scriptures and they make their own mythologies using parts of them. Like, they would have taken the symbolism of the cornerstone from the parables in the scriptures, and then they applied that to creating their own false Christ, their own false saint, because all of the real saints as well are just other symbols for the divine man. Okay, the apostles and the saints and the disciples, they are just other symbols for the divine man. Okay, and that's why there's 12 of them, 12 tribes. Okay, it's all correlating to the divine race, which are 288 individual souls, 144 tribes, because each of the individual souls is a half of another soul. So 2 souls together create it's also known as a tribe, a male and female tribe, because every soul is created like a whole soul. Even mortal souls are created this way, and then upon creation they split into a male and female soul. Yes, souls have gender. This is also part of the principle of gender from the Hermetic principles. And then they are birthed into their physical garments, okay, their physical sheaths or their physical containers, and onto the material plane. All right, so when you put those the male and female soul together, it's called a tribe. A good way to see it is yin yang. The yin yang symbol is literally symbolizing the soul tribe. And so there's 144 soul tribes in the divine race. And so there's 12 tribes. So 12, 12's 144, you know, so it basically, it breaks it all down, and 12 is a very, very important number, and that's why you see that repeating over and over again in relation to the divine race, because it's a way they occult the knowledge. You will see 288 and 144 also spoken about in the Bible, but not in the same way that you'll see 12 relating to the apostles and the disciples and the tribes and all of that. It's very different in the way that they relate the knowledge, because they occult the knowledge, okay? Because as I've said, you need special tools, other esoteric tools, to understand the scriptures. And one of those tools being symbolism. And the scriptures is really literally just about the divine race and their experience as they go from the higher ages down to the lower ages with the mortal man, which basically they have guardianship over. They see the mortal man as their children. Just as God the Father sees the divine race as his children, the divine race see the mortal man as their children, okay? And in the beginning, they look after them. You know, they care for them. They are their guardians. And then as they move down the cycle and they lose access to their divinity, things change. But anyway, this is what the truth that they're hiding from you is. This is what it is. Okay, you can go and research this and you'll find it, just like I have. All right, and so people just need to understand this is what they're trying to hide from us, that we do have a divine race, and we all do have a divine portion within us to different degrees, and the divine are among us right now. Okay, the divine are among us right now. We just don't know who the divine are. We will know who the divine are, and it will be those who we don't expect. And that's what the Bible also tells us, okay, is that it is purposely done in a way, in divine operation on the material plane, is done in a way that the divine have to be completely humbled, and so they are not given high positions in society. They are not high up, you know. They are the people that exist around us, the everyday people, because they are experiencing and being humbled by life as an average mortal. That is how it actually, you know, works in the way the divine operation works on the material plane, on a soul level. So that's why it says, you know, always be nice to strangers, because you could have entertained angels. Okay, always be nice to that person who's just a cleaner, or who's just a you know, an office worker, or you know, working at the checkout at Walmart or whatever. You don't know. You don't know. And if you're going to judge someone based on what they do for a living or the amount of money they have in their account, well, the Antichrists are laughing at you, because that's what they want you to do. They want you to equate your wealth to how you are as a successful human. So the more wealth you have in your account, the more wealth you can show people. You've got a nice car, you've got a nice house. The more worldliness you indulge in, well, then you must be a more successful human. You must be more honoured as a human. And it's completely us about, guys. It's about character, okay? It's all about character, and we all must judge each other on character, not on race, not on religion, but on character. Okay, and not on the amount of money somebody has, not what kind of car they drive, on character. That's what we've got to learn again, because we've been brainwashed into seeing everybody by appearances. And that's why social media is so toxic, because most of these influencers live like completely miserable, depressed lives, and they aren't living the way that they're living. They're just showing this false illusion of who they are, and people believe it because their lives are so miserable. They want to believe that they can attain that as well, what that person has, but it's all just an illusion. Okay, so be careful. Don't be sucked into the illusion. So yeah, and then they said that the flagstone, okay, of course, was a symbol attached to this saint that they created. And because he was born on the flagstone, it was imbued with magical powers. And if one lied while touching it, the stone would weep. Now, you can just see what they would have been doing to the Irish back then. They would have basically been making them touch the stone and renounce their own religion and renounce their family members. And then they would have had a way of making water come out of the stone, and they would have called that a sign from God, and that person was lying, and God is weeping, and God is showing us that he is weeping, and we must burn that person at the stake and purify him. I mean, you guys just need to get your head around what these people were going through at the hands of the Catholic Church to understand how they've managed to successfully brainwash these people and society into believing the reality in which we live in, and the one in which every year somebody celebrates this false saint who was actually enacting so much horror in his name on the people of Ireland. And they're actually celebrating him. They're actually celebrating this fabrication of this saint that was used to, persecute their ancestors in the most horrible, evil, torturous ways, and they're celebrating him every year as though it's all part of their identity, and it's not. It's all part of the destruction of their identity. So apparently when Patrick was a child, it was said that he halted a flood by dipping his hands in the water and drawing fire from it. So we can see that about Moses halting the water. Okay, again, they're borrowing from the analogies and parables and stories in the Bible, and then they're making their own myths up around to create this mythology around this person that didn't even exist. They'd said that, so this is the one where, so this one involves the Druids, okay? It is also said that when Patrick lit a fire on Easter, when it was in contravention to the laws of the kings of Tara, and when the Druids confronted him, St. Patrick summoned demons to raise the Druid Lochru into air and letting him fall back to earth, striking his head against a stone and turning him to dust and ash. The Druid Logara was enraged and went to kill Patrick, but then Patrick loudly sung a verse from Psalms 68, and I won't read that verse from Psalms 68, but I suggest you go and do it. It's literally about God using the tribes of Israel to scatter the enemy and crush them. It was said that Patrick could command spirits, call forth lightning, winds and earthquakes. And in another confrontation with the Druids, when Logara's son Lugath became king, he refused to accept Christianity and mocked Patrick, and Lugath was then killed by a lightning bolt. So basically what they were doing was making examples of any of the Druids that would come up against them and try to fight them. They would basically kill them and then make up some story about how they died in some supernatural way. Again, putting the fear of, basically demons into the Irish people, filling their heads with all of these, forcing them to believe it. And so literally when they were it would only take a generation, guys. 2 at most. You can imagine that they were forced to believe this knowledge, right? This not even knowledge, I wouldn't call it this disinformation, right? They were forced to believe this disinformation under threat of death and demons and being burned at the stakes. Their children would have been sitting with them in these churches, being forced to believe this as well, grown up believing it to be true. And then what do you think their children taught their subsequent children, the next generation who were also in those churches? It only would have taken a few generations before this myth became the reality of the Irish, especially when they destroyed all of the knowledge, stole the knowledge as well, okay, and then killed off all their Druid priests. I mean, literally, there is not a fragment in existence of any of the Druid teachings, other than, as I said, mentions about them in various manuscripts. So Patrick gave his blessings to one Celtic festival called Lunasa, and he was said to visit a fair in Tultu that forbid any killings on the fields. So what they're basically trying to make out is that the pagans were sacrificing people. That is a lie. The pagans did not sacrifice people. The pagans would have had knowledge, and they had knowledge that death meant sin, okay? You didn't go killing people to sacrifice to God, okay? God doesn't need you to sacrifice his own creations to him, all right? And so, but he actually allowed them to kill one human. So he allowed them. St. Patrick, a saint, a godly man, said, yeah, but you can't kill one person. Every year at an ancient fortress near Taltu called Rathathea, and I'm probably slaughtering these words, okay, so forgive me anybody who is Irish listening in on this stream. I know, I cannot, pronounce these words. That's the old Aussie accent, guys. Taltu site, which would become a major centre for the Church of Patrick. So they stole one of their sacred sites, basically instructed them to kill somebody at that site every year for a festival that would celebrate St. Patrick. Can you not see the evil of these people? I mean, it's literally mocking them and just mocking their own divine heritage. Another site situated on a mountain known today as Croll Patrick was connected to Lugh of the Tuatha Dé Danann. Now, this is where we start to see Lugh of the Tuatha Dé Danann mentioned in connection to St. Patrick. Now, you won't see a lot about King Nuada. You'll see a lot about Queen Danu, and especially in European mythology as well, and even in Hindu mythology you'll see Queen Danu, but you won't see a lot about King Nuada. Again, they removed pretty much all evidence of King Nuada, so we only have limited knowledge of King Nuada because they literally had to remove all of the evidence of the person that the Irish would have seen as their Messiah, because he literally was the Messiah, the Christed, Jesus, but just by another name, okay? Tribe of Dan, whatever else you want to call it. But so they used another one of the messiahs within the divine race to steal the mythology from and create a mythology around St. Patrick. So they could still use the mythology of the Celts, of the Celtic, of the Irish, and keep it somewhat aligned with what they already knew, of what they already believed due to their own mythologies about the Tuatha Dé Danann, and then they twisted their own stories into that about this fake St. Patrick, this fabrication that they made up. But they had to use one of the messiahs that wasn't the firstborn. So they used the tribe of Judah. They used the tribe of Lugh. Okay, so you'll find quite a lot of Lugh mythology still surviving. So they could still steal from that mythology of Lugh without revealing too much of the knowledge that would have connected the Tuatha Dé Danann to the other knowledge throughout Europe and ancient Greece and ancient Egypt, because they wanted to prevent that happening. They don't want you to be able to join the fragments together. They had to destroy the connections. And the best way to destroy the connections is to target what was most written about and recorded, and that was knowledge around the firstborn divine son. And that's why you still see within the knowledge that has remained, it's always about the firstborn divine son. And that's, seen in ancient Greece, Apollo, Dionysus, Mars in Roman. We can see that in Horus. We can see that in Ra. We can see that in Thor. We can see that in Quetzalcoatl. I mean, all of the different civilizations and cultures talk about the firstborn divine son, and they know, and they do this on purpose, because they know that they have to have something that's really solid, repeating over and over and over again, because they know that when we go into the lower ages, a lot of the knowledge is destroyed. So it's a lot of the more detailed knowledge, the lesser known knowledge that gets destroyed first. But it's harder for them to destroy everything about the firstborn son, because there's so much knowledge, literally repeated over and over and over again about the firstborn son. So there's probably a lot of cultures, smaller cultures, all throughout the continents that there is knowledge was complete, their knowledge was completely removed, or it's little known, especially a lot of the smaller European countries, like the Slavic countries and the Baltic countries. If you have a look at their mythologies, there are gods that are describing the firstborn son, but they're not as well known. Those gods are not as well known. They are well known in that, in that actual culture, but they're not as well known around the world as say Apollo is. Like, we all know who Apollo is. We all know who Dionysus is. We all know who Mars represents in the Roman mythology, So yeah, that's what they've sought to do. You have to think, you have to have the mind and think the way they think. Like, so you have to say, well, if I was evil and I wanted to destroy all of this knowledge so that people were stupid and they didn't know and I could control them, what would I do? Okay, you have to do that. You have to put yourself in their shoes. And that's how I can actually predict a lot of what they're going to do accurately. And I have predicted a lot of what they've done accurately, because I learn how they are thinking, how they are how they are unfolding their own script. And for those of you who go, well, what did she say what did she predict that was right? Well, in 2016, I uploaded a video warning that they were going to roll out a pandemic on us, and they were going to use it to take away our freedoms and to lock us down and to beta test us. So you can find that on my channel. Okay, and those who have been following me for a long time, you know about that video. It's not a very popular video. Not many people know about it. Okay, and I don't really care too much about that. It was more of a confirmation to myself that I was on the right track. Okay, and so if I was right about that, what else am I right about? That's what you should ask yourself about when it comes to predicting what the Antichrists are going to do in their script. I don't expect you to believe me about all of the information about the divine race and the ancient knowledge. I expect you to go and look that up for yourself and confirm it for yourself. Critical thinking, that's what you need to engage in, and that means finding flaw in information. So you need to find flaw in the information that I am relaying to you about all of this ancient knowledge and this esoteric knowledge by going and looking into the ancient texts yourself. I'm not talking about going and listening to some other YouTuber that just gives an opinion that doesn't agree with what I'm relaying here. I'm talking about you actually go and get the texts, go and look them up, and find where the text says something that I haven't said on this stream. Okay, and then you need to find it cross-culture, because pretty much everything that I relate here I found in other texts across culture as well. That's a very important part of being a researcher. You must go cross-culture and look at various different texts and weigh and measure them against each other, especially when you're coming to the modern Bible, because a lot of that has been changed. So you need to weigh and measure the modern Bible against the Gnostic texts and also the Colburn Bible. Okay? So more of this information is that he was brought to a blind man. This fraud, St. Patrick was brought to a blind man to be baptized, but there was no water for the blind man to use to baptize St. Patrick, when suddenly a well sprung forth and healed the blind man's eyes and gave him instant knowledge.
And so that myth was connected to Lug of the Teuthadou-Danann, who I was just talking about, equates to the tribe of Judah. And the story behind Lug of the Teuthadou-Danann was that the king, who was said to be a direct descendant of Lug, was forced to give up his last eye when he was led to a bush of reeds and instructed to pull them out. When he does, a lake bursts forth and the water heals his eyes, restoring his sight. So you can see how they would have easily been able to get their little shills and do miracles in front of the congregation. You know, the shill comes along, pretends he's blind, you know, probably sometime coerced, you know, we will murder your family unless you tell everybody that you're blind, you know, and it could have been someone that was well known within the village that people wouldn't think would lie. And, you know, they've threatened him either death or death to his wife and his children, unless he comes and says he's blind, he's lost his sight, and then a few weeks later they bring him into church and the clergyman, the priest, does a ritual in the name of St. Patrick, and guess what? His sight is restored. See how easy it would have been to convince them, okay, under fear of death, and just fear, literally just fear, because that's what everybody is just controlled with these days, is fear of death, okay? Everything is about, we're doing this for your own good because you don't want to die. Why? What's so bad with death? I can literally tell you, hand on my heart, swearing on my children's life, I have no fear of death whatsoever. Bring it. Bring it. Sometimes I long for it, okay, to take me out of this hellhole that I exist in. I'm only here because of my children. I don't know if I could say that if my children weren't here. I would never, ever exit the material plane prematurely, because I find that cowardly, okay, and I'm here to the very end until I'm taken out one way or the other. But I wouldn't do that to my children to start with. But I don't have a fear of death. Do I want to die horribly? Do I want pain? No. Do I fear pain? Yeah. Don't kind of want to, you know, be burned at a stake. Don't want to go out that way. Don't want to be tortured. But do I actually fear death itself, leaving my physical body and returning to the ethereal plane in my true form? No, I do not. And when you can say the same thing, those antichrists, pricks, will not have any control over you, ever, okay? You need to get to that point where you just don't have a fear of them anymore, because you don't fear death. And that's all they've got to hang over your head, isn't it, really? When you think about it, they really only have the fear of death to hang over your head, to control you. So you remove that fear of death, because you understand who you are as a soul to a level, very, very deep level. You won't have that fear anymore. And then they won't control you. So that's where you have to be. Right, and so the other one, now I'll finish off with the myth that is supposedly connected to the snakes, the ridding of the snakes, right? As I said, there's a few more in here, but I won't go into them because we're going into 2 hours 12, and I don't want to go longer than 2.5. I even didn't think I was going to go this long. God, could you imagine if I had kept the news and updates instead of doing a separate video? Anyway, so all of this, the other mythologies that they have surrounding the fake St. Patrick will be posted in Keepers of the Flame, okay? But I'll just go on and show you just the one that is about the snakes, all right? Because that's the one everybody knows. He ridded the snakes from Ireland, even though Ireland doesn't have any snakes. What does it mean? What does it mean? Well, I don't really care what it means. I just want to get shit-faced on green beer. Okay, well, to all the ignorants who don't know what it means, this is a story about the how Patrick ridded Ireland of the snakes. Now, some say that it wasn't snakes, it was blackbirds. Okay, so we don't know. Was it you know, blackbirds? Was it a snake? But everyone knows it is snakes, so I'm just going to stick to the snakes, okay? So, I'm trying to find it. Where did I put it? You think I would have darkened it? Hang on. Right, here it is. Here it is, here it is, here it is. All right. Patrick climbs a mountain, okay, and he is confronted by a group of demons in the form of snakes. As I said, some versions say it's blackbirds. He fights with the snakes and drives them into the sea where they are drowned. So this myth is literally copying a myth from Lug, once again, Lug from the Teutha de Danann, who defeated his enemies on top of the same mountain that they said that Patrick defeated the demon snakes. But Lug from Teutha de Danann defeated his enemies on top of that mountain and drove them into the sea, drowning them. So that, my friends, is where they get the story of Patrick driving out the snakes from Ireland. He literally, they turned into demons on the top of a mountain and he drove them off the mountain into the ocean and killed them. So that's apparently what everybody is celebrating, guys, on the 17th. And the green colour as well. Remember how I said colours are also related to symbolism? Well, green is the colour of the entire divine race. When you see them as 288 divine souls, they are green. Red is the colour of the divine male. Blue is the colour of the divine female. Purple is the colour of the soul tribe. Right? Remember how I said the male and the female form a soul tribe? Well, that colour is purple. And that's why you see the royals love to use purple, don't they? And that's why you see when you look at Christian iconography, you will see that Jesus is in red and Mary Magdalene or Virgin Mary or Mary is in blue. Yellow is Moses, is the intermediate, and I don't really talk much about intermediate consciousness. So intermediate consciousness is literally, it's a little bit more difficult to explain, probably not the best to do it at the end of a 2.5 hour live stream, but just think of it literally as somewhere in between God's mind and human minds. It's like the part in between. So our minds don't directly meet with God's mind because it would just blow our minds apart, because God the Creator is just so, we couldn't even imagine. Our little puny brains are just, we just can't do it. Okay, we couldn't fathom it. So there's like this intermediate. And this is what Thoth and Hermes and Moses represents. And the Akashic records, and there's other names. And so it's this intermediate where it's kind of knowledge gathers and then we tap into that. Our minds tap into that. And knowledge is revealed to us from that. And knowledge is normally revealed to us in archetypes. And so that's why a lot of symbolism is archetypal as well. All right, guys, well, I think I'll leave it there. I did just want to leave with one thing, and that is, again, about the tribe of Dan being connected to the divine race, the tribe of Dan and the Teutha de Danann and the snake, okay? So I'll just finish by this, with this verse from Genesis, and it's 49, 16, 18. Dan will provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a snake by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heels so its rider tumbles backward. I look for your deliverance, Lord. So there you go. There you go. The Teutha de Danann, they are the snakes, the divine race. They are the snake, and the symbol of the serpent is related to the tribe of Dan. The Antichrist's St. Patrick fabrication is literally mocking the Irish and humanity about ridding Ireland of the last traces of the divine race before they took full control of the material world, which is where we are now. Anyway, guys, I will leave it here. As I said, I'm going to do a news and update video live stream, probably on Saturday morning, which will be, I think, Friday night for you guys in the US. So I will make a post about that in the group, and I will maybe make a post about that also and upload a video onto YouTube, just so you know when it's going to be. And then I'll just do my, observations around the shit show that is now playing out in the political, arena, and some earth change as well. I do want to show you some interesting information in regards to earth changes too. Okay, well, thank you everybody that has stayed with me for nearly the whole, almost made 2.5 hours today. I do appreciate it. I hope you've gained some information. I hope next time you see somebody celebrating St. Patrick's Day, you can actually say, did you realise that the snake symbolism is actually connected to the tribe of Dan and the Thyalwaysseek? I mean, that's all you really have to say to get their wheels, the cogs in their brain turning. You don't really have to tell them too much more than that. But really, it is a responsibility for all of us that when we do have possession of knowledge, we do reveal that knowledge, even when sometimes it's not met with positivity. I mean, we are going to get attacked and abused, but that's, pretty much the part and parcel of being someone that does have possession of knowledge. It's an unfortunate part of it, but it is all part of it. And just don't take it personally, okay? They're basically reacting emotionally because they are experiencing negative feelings when you start shaking them out of their illusion, their accepted reality that they've chosen, that they want to believe in. So don't take it personally, guys. Water off a duck's back. That's pretty much how I see it. All right, guys, well, I really am going to leave it here now. So have a great week. And thanks again to all of you who stuck around. And as always, peace out.